The phone vibrated on Adrian Blake's desk at 11:47 p.m., a number he didn't recognize. He almost ignored it, but something made him answer. The voice on the other end was smooth, unfamiliar, and utterly certain. "You don't know me yet, but you will." Before he could respond, she hung up. 3 days later, that same voice would belong to the woman standing in his daughter's school parking lot, smiling like she'd been waiting for him all along. Adrian didn't believe in fate. He didn't believe in second chances, but Sophie Carter was about to make him question everything. Thanks for joining this story. If you're watching from somewhere out there, hit like, drop a comment with your city, and let me know how far this one travels. Adrian Blake had learned to live small, not by choice, by necessity. His world had shrunk to the size of a 2-bedroom apartment in a part of the city where rent was affordable and neighbors minded their own business. It consisted of drop-offs and pickups, after-school snacks, bedtime rituals, and the unspoken terror that one mistake could unravel everything he'd fought to hold together. At 32, he looked older than he should have. His hair had started graying at the temples 2 years ago, right around the time the divorce was finalized. He didn't bother dyeing it. Vanity felt like a luxury he couldn't afford. His wardrobe was practical: collared shirts that didn't wrinkle too badly, dark jeans that hid stains, sneakers that could handle playground duty and client meetings on the same day. He worked as a mid-level project coordinator at a construction management firm called Hartwell & Associates. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't what he'd imagined when he was younger, back when he still thought ambition mattered. But it paid the bills. It kept Mia in a decent school. It kept them fed, clothed, stable. Stable. That was the word he repeated to himself on the hard days. As long as things stayed stable, they'd be fine. Mia was 8, small for her age, with dark curls that tangled no matter how much conditioner he used, and her mother's sharp green eyes. She was smart, too smart sometimes. She asked questions Adrian didn't always have answers to. She noticed things he wished she wouldn't. "Dad, how come we never go on vacations like Emma's family?" "Dad, why doesn't Mom ever come to my school stuff?" "Dad, are you lonely?" That last one had gutted him. He'd been making her lunch at the time, slicing an apple into wedges the way she liked. His hands had stilled over the cutting board. "I'm not lonely, sweetheart," he'd lied. "I've got you." She'd tilted her head, studying him with that unnerving 8-year-old wisdom. That's not the same thing. She was right, of course, but admitting that felt dangerous. The divorce had been brutal in the quiet, civilized way that left no visible scars. His ex-wife, Lauren, had left him for someone who made more money, traveled more, laughed more. Someone who wasn't buried under the weight of responsibility and student loans and the kind of exhaustion that made your bones ache. She'd wanted shared custody at first. Then 6 months in, she'd met someone new, a consultant who worked overseas half the year. And suddenly the custody arrangement shifted. Mia stayed with Adrian full-time. Lauren sent checks and birthday cards and occasionally showed up for a dinner that always ended with Mia asking why she had to leave so soon. Adrian never badmouthed her. He didn't have to. Mia was smart enough to read between the lines. So he became everything: father, mother, cook, chauffeur, tutor, therapist. He learned to braid hair from YouTube videos. He kept a calendar color-coded for school events, doctor's appointments, and grocery trips. He survived on 4 hours of sleep and too much coffee, and the stubborn belief that if he just kept moving, kept managing, kept holding it together, everything would be okay. And it was okay. Mostly. Until the night of November 14th, when Sophie Carter walked into his life and detonated everything he thought he understood about survival. It started with a work event, a reception for a new project the firm had landed, some high-rise commercial development downtown. Adrian's boss, Greg Hartwell, had insisted the whole team attend. "Networking," he'd said, clapping Adrian on the shoulder with the kind of forced enthusiasm that made Adrian's jaw tighten. "Good for morale, good for your career. You want that raise, don't you?" Adrian hated networking. He hated small talk and forced laughter and standing around with a drink he didn't want, pretending to care about people he'd never see again. But he went because Greg had made it clear that raises were coming up, and attendance at these things didn't go unnoticed. The venue was one of those industrial chic places with exposed brick and Edison bulbs, and a bartender who took 5 minutes to make a gin and tonic. Adrian nursed a beer he didn't finish and made polite conversation with a couple of contractors he vaguely recognized. His phone buzzed twice, texts from the babysitter, Mrs. Chen from down the hall, confirming Mia was asleep. He answered, slipped the phone back into his pocket, and checked his watch. 9:43 p.m. Acceptable to leave in another 15 minutes. He was calculating the exact moment he could slip out unnoticed when Greg appeared at his elbow, grinning too wide, smelling faintly of whiskey. "Blake, you met the Langford group people yet?" "Not yet," Adrian said. "Come on, I'll introduce you. They're handling the zoning approvals. Total pain in the ass, but they know their stuff." Greg steered him through the crowd with a hand on his shoulder that felt more like a grip than a guide. They stopped in front of a small cluster of people near the bar. Adrian recognized one of them, Martin Langford, the firm's principal, a man in his 60s with the kind of confidence that came from never having been told no. "Martin," Greg said loudly. "Got someone you should meet. Adrian Blake, one of my best coordinators. Adrian, Martin Langford." They shook hands. Martin's grip was firm, automatic. "Blake," Martin said. "Greg speaks highly of you." "That's generous of him," Adrian said. "Don't be modest. We need people who actually get things done." Martin gestured to the woman standing beside him. "This is Sophie Carter, one of our senior consultants. She'll be your main point of contact on the zoning side." And that's when Adrian saw her. She was younger than he'd expected, mid-20s maybe. She had dark hair pulled back in a way that looked effortless but probably wasn't, and gray eyes that didn't miss much. She wore a black dress that was simple but deliberate, nothing flashy, nothing trying too hard. When she smiled, it reached her eyes. "Adrian," she said, extending her hand. Her voice was smooth, clear. Good to finally put a face to the name. He shook her hand. Her grip was firm, warmer than he'd expected. "Yeah," he said. "Likewise." "I've been copied on about 100 of your emails," she said. "You're very thorough." "That's one way to put it," he said. She laughed, not polite cocktail party laughter, but something real. "I like thorough. Saves me from having to chase people down." Greg and Martin had already moved on to someone else, leaving Adrian and Sophie standing there with half-finished drinks and nothing to do but talk. "So," Sophie said, "how long have you been with Hartwell?" 6 years, Adrian said. "You?" "Langford. About 3. Before that I was doing policy work for the city." "That must have been fun," Adrian said, and immediately regretted the sarcasm. But Sophie grinned. "Oh, it was a blast. Nothing like sitting in a windowless room for 8 hours arguing about parking ordinances." "Sounds like my kind of party, right?" "I lasted 2 years before I realized I'd rather work with people who actually want to build things instead of people who just want to stop them." Adrian found himself smiling despite himself. "Yeah, I get that." There was a pause, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Sophie took a sip of her drink, something clear with lime, and looked around the room. "You look like you'd rather be anywhere else," she observed. "That obvious?" "Little bit." She tilted her head. "Let me guess. You've got somewhere you need to be." "Kid at home," he said. "Babysitter's on the clock." "How old?" 8. "Good age," Sophie said, and she sounded like she meant it. "I was a complete menace at 8. "Yeah? What'd you do?" "Convinced my parents I needed a pet snake for a science project. They caved. 2 weeks later, it escaped and turned up in the neighbor's laundry room." Adrian laughed, actually laughed, the kind that caught him off guard. "How'd that go over?" "Neighbors didn't speak to us for a year. My mom threatened to send me to boarding school. Totally worth it, though. That snake was awesome." "What happened to it?" "We found it a better home, meaning a home where it couldn't terrorize the entire block." She grinned. "I cried for a week." Adrian shook his head, still smiling. "Your parents must have been thrilled. They got over it eventually." She paused. "What about your kid? She into snakes?" "Mia? No, thank God. She's more into drawing and making things explode in science class." "Sounds like my kind of kid." There was something easy about talking to Sophie. She didn't fill silence with noise. She listened when he talked. She didn't ask the kinds of questions people asked when they were just being polite. "Well," Adrian said after a moment, glancing at his watch again, "I should probably—" "Let me walk you out," Sophie said. It wasn't a question, but it wasn't pushy either. Just easy. So he nodded. They walked through the venue's glass doors into the cool November night. The street was quieter than he'd expected. Just a few cabs idling at the curb and a couple of smokers huddled near the entrance. The air smelled like rain that hadn't fallen yet. You drove? Sophie asked. Yeah, parked a few blocks over. Me too. This way? Yeah. They started walking. Their footsteps echoed on the sidewalk. Somewhere in the distance, a car alarm went off and then stopped. So, Sophie said after a moment, what's it like? Single dad life? Adrian glanced at her. How'd you know I was single? No ring, she said, nodding at his left hand. And you didn't say we when you mentioned your kid, just I. Sharp. He filed that away. It's fine, he said. Busy. That's the polite version, she said. What's the real one? He hesitated. He didn't talk about this. Not with coworkers, not with strangers, not with anyone. His life was his business, and the less people knew, the less they could judge. But something about the way Sophie asked, like she actually wanted to know, not just hear the sanitized version, made him answer honestly. It's hard, he said. Really hard. Some days I don't know if I'm doing it right. Some days I'm pretty sure I'm screwing it all up. But it's also the only thing that makes sense anymore. Sophie nodded slowly, like she was turning his words over in her mind. Yeah, I get that. You got kids? God, no. She laughed. I can barely keep a plan alive, but I get the only thing that makes sense part. Sometimes the hard stuff is the only stuff worth doing. They walked in silence for another block. Adrian's car came into view, a 10-year-old sedan that ran fine but looked like it had been through a few rough winters. This is me, he said, stopping beside it. Sophie looked at the car, then back at him. Her expression was unreadable. Adrian Blake, she said, like she was testing the name out loud. Sophie Carter, he replied. I'm glad we finally met in person, she said. The emails don't really do you justice. He wasn't sure what to say to that, so he just nodded. Yeah, you too. She smiled, gave a little wave, and turned to walk off into the dark. Adrian got in his car, started the engine, and sat there for a minute, hands on the wheel, staring at nothing. He felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Awake. Ouch. 3 days later, she was standing in the parking lot of Mia's school. Adrian saw her before she saw him. He was early for pickup, unusual, but he'd finished a site meeting ahead of schedule and figured he'd surprise Mia by being the first parent there for once. He was leaning against his car, scrolling through emails on his phone, when he glanced up and saw her. Sophie, standing near the bike rack, wearing jeans and a dark green sweater, talking on her phone. His brain stuttered. What the hell was she doing here? Before he could decide whether to approach her or pretend he hadn't seen her, the school doors burst open and kids came streaming out, backpacks bouncing, voices loud and chaotic. Mia spotted him immediately and ran over, her curls flying. Dad! She crashed into him with the kind of hug that knocked the air out of his lungs. You're early! He crouched down, caught her properly. Finished work early. Figured I'd come get you myself for once. Mrs. Chen's gonna be so confused. Mia giggled. I'll text her. He stood, ruffling her hair. Good day? We made volcanoes in science, and mine exploded everywhere, and Mrs. Patterson said it was enthusiastic. She said the word carefully, proud of it. That's my girl. Very enthusiastic. When he looked up, Sophie was walking toward them, phone tucked away, smiling like she'd just won something. Adrian, she said, and there was genuine surprise in her voice. Small world. Mia looked between them, curious but not shy. She had her mother's eyes, but none of her mother's hesitation around strangers. Hi, Mia said. Hi yourself, Sophie said, crouching down to Mia's level without being asked. You must be Mia. Mia's eyes went wide. How did you know my name? Your dad told me about you, Sophie said. He said you like making things explode in science class. Mia grinned, showing the gap where she'd lost a tooth last week. I do. Today I made a volcano and it went everywhere, and some of it got on Jackson's shirt and he got mad, but Mrs. Patterson said it was okay because it's just baking soda. Baking soda volcanoes are the best kind, Sophie said seriously. Did you use vinegar or something else? Vinegar and food coloring. Mine was purple. Purple volcanoes are scientifically accurate, Sophie said with a straight face. Adrian watched this exchange, feeling like the ground had shifted under him and he hadn't noticed until now. What are you doing here? He asked, trying to sound casual and probably failing. Sophie straightened. My sister teaches third grade here. Emma Carter. I was dropping off her lunch. She forgot it this morning. Ms. Carter is my teacher, Mia practically shouted. She's the best. She let me feed the class hamster today. Sophie's grin widened. Did she? That's a big responsibility. I know his name is Pickles and he's very fat. Pickles is an excellent name for a hamster, Sophie said. Adrian's chest tightened, not in a bad way, but in a way that scared him. Watching Sophie talk to Mia like it was the most natural thing in the world, watching Mia light up the way she did when someone actually listened to her, actually cared, it felt dangerous. Well, Adrian said, cutting in before he could think about it too hard, we should probably… Can Sophie come over? Mia blurted. Mia, please, we never have people over. And she said purple volcanoes are scientifically accurate, so she's obviously really smart. Sweetheart, Sophie's probably busy. I'm not, actually, Sophie said. Adrian stared at her. She raised her hands, half apologetic, half amused. I mean, if it's too weird, totally fine. But I don't have plans tonight, and I make a mean grilled cheese. Also, I'm genuinely curious about this hamster situation. Mia looked up at Adrian with those eyes, the ones that could break him in half when she really wanted something. Dad, please. He was going to regret this. He knew he was going to regret this. Okay, he said, but just for a little while. Mia cheered, Sophie smiled, and Adrian tried to ignore the feeling in his chest that this was the beginning of something he wouldn't be able to control. Sophie's grilled cheese was, in fact, excellent. She used real butter, actual cheddar instead of the pre-sliced stuff, and toasted the bread until it was golden crispy on both sides. Mia declared it the best grilled cheese in the history of grilled cheese and ate two before Adrian could remind her about eating slowly. Sophie sat at their small kitchen table like she'd been there 100 times before, laughing at Mia's stories about Pickles the hamster and nodding seriously when Mia explained the correct way to care for volcano-making supplies. You have to keep the baking soda in a special container, Mia said, very serious, because if it gets wet, it doesn't work right. That's good to know, Sophie said. I'll remember that for future volcano emergencies. Do you make volcanoes a lot? Mia asked. Not as much as I should, Sophie admitted, but I'm thinking about getting back into it. Adrian stood at the counter, pretending to clean up but mostly just watching. Sophie caught his eye once and smiled, and he had to look away. After dinner, Mia pulled out her math homework, subtraction with borrowing, which she hated, and spread it out on the table with a dramatic sigh. I don't get this, she announced. What part? Adrian asked, moving to sit beside her. All of it. Sophie leaned over. Can I try? Adrian hesitated, then nodded. Sophie looked at the worksheet, then at Mia. Okay, so you've got 43 minus 17. What's the problem? You can't take 7 from 3, Mia said, frustrated. It doesn't work. Right. So what do? I don't know. That's the problem. Okay. Imagine you have $43. I don't have $43, Mia said. Pretend. Okay. And you want to buy something that costs $17. How do you pay for it? Mia frowned, thinking. I'd give them a 20 and a 10 and… Wait, that's 30. Then I'd need… She stopped. Oh. Yeah? I'd break one of the 10s into ones, so I'd have 3 10s and 13 ones. Exactly, Sophie said. That's all borrowing is. You're just breaking up the 10s so you have enough ones to subtract from. Mia's face lit up. Oh, that makes sense. She worked through the rest of the problems without help. And when she finished, she looked up at Sophie like she'd just explained the secrets of the universe. You're really good at math, Mia said. Thanks. You're really good at listening. Adrian felt something twist in his chest. By the time Sophie left, politely, before it got too late, the apartment felt different. Less small, less quiet. Less like a place where nothing ever changed. Mia was brushing her teeth when she called from the bathroom. Dad? Yeah? I like her. Adrian leaned against the doorframe, watching Mia's reflection in the mirror. Yeah? Yeah, she's nice, and she's funny, and she didn't talk to me like I'm a baby. That's true. Mia rinsed her mouth, spit, wiped her face with the towel. Then she turned to look at him directly. Do you like her? Adrian's throat tightened. Yeah, Bug. I do. Good. Mia smiled. You should invite her over again. We'll see. That means yes, Mia said confidently. That means we'll see. But Mia was already heading to her room, humming something off-key, clearly satisfied with herself. Adrian stood there for a long moment, staring at nothing. He was in trouble. Over the next 2 weeks, Sophie kept appearing. Not intrusively, not suspiciously, just there. At the coffee shop Adrian stopped at every morning, Brewed Awakening, a place 2 blocks from his apartment that made decent coffee and didn't ask questions when he ordered the same thing every day. He walked in on a Tuesday, still half asleep, and there she was, sitting in the corner with a laptop and a cup of something that smelled like cinnamon. She looked up when he walked in, and her face broke into a smile. "Stalking me?" he said before he could stop himself. "You wish," she shot back. "I live 3 blocks from here. This is my spot." "Your spot." "I've been coming here for 2 years. You're the interloper." He ordered his coffee, black, medium, nothing fancy, and when it was ready, Sophie waved him over. "Sit," she said. "I've got work." "Sit for 5 minutes. You look like you need it." He sat. They didn't talk about anything important. She told him about a zoning meeting that had gone sideways because someone brought up parking regulations from 1987. He told her about a contractor who'd tried to substitute cheaper materials without telling anyone and got caught. When he left, his coffee was cold, but he felt lighter. Walk. On Saturday, he took Mia to the park, their usual weekend routine when the weather was decent. She liked the swings, the ones that went high enough to make her stomach flip. Sophie was there, sitting on a bench, reading a book, wearing jeans and a jacket and sunglasses even though it was overcast. Mia saw her first. "Sophie!" Sophie looked up, surprised, then delighted. "Mia, hey!" Mia ran over, dragging Adrian behind her. "What are you doing here?" Mia asked. "Reading," Sophie said, holding up the book. "It's boring, though. You're way more interesting." "We're going on the swings. Do you want to come?" "Mia," Adrian started. "Sophie's probably—" "I'd love to," Sophie said. So they went on the swings. Sophie pushed Mia higher than Adrian usually did, and Mia shrieked with laughter, and Adrian stood off to the side, hands in his pockets, watching. When Mia finally got tired and ran off to the slide, Sophie walked over to him. "This isn't weird, right?" she asked. "What?" "Me. Showing up everywhere. I swear I'm not following you." "I know," he said. "It's just a small city, or maybe we're both just creatures of habit." "Maybe." She looked at him for a long moment. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Why do you look so scared all the time?" He blinked. "I don't—" "You do." Her voice was gentle, not accusing. "Not of me, just of everything." He didn't answer right away. He watched Mia climb the slide, watched her wave at them from the top. "Because," he said finally, "if I stop being scared, I might screw it all up." Sophie was quiet for a moment. "Or," she said, "you might not." They started texting. Nothing heavy, just little things. Sophie: "Your daughter asked my sister if volcanoes can be purple. Thoughts?" Adrian: "Absolutely. Purple volcanoes are scientifically valid." Sophie: "I'll let Emma know. She's updating the curriculum as we speak." Then, Sophie: "There's a food truck festival this Saturday. You and Mia should come." Adrian: "We don't really do crowds." Sophie: "Okay." Rain check. But Saturday came, and Mia had been asking all week if they could do something fun, and Adrian had run out of excuses. So they went. The festival was loud and crowded and exactly the kind of thing Adrian usually avoided. But Mia's face lit up when she saw the trucks lined up, smelled the food, heard the music playing from somewhere. "Can we get tacos?" she asked. "Sure." "And ice cream?" "We'll see." "That means yes." They got tacos, 3 kinds because Mia couldn't decide, and were looking for a place to sit when someone called Adrian's name. "Adrian!" He turned. Sophie was weaving through the crowd toward them, grinning, holding a cup of lemonade. "You came," she said. "Apparently," Adrian said. "Hi, Sophie," Mia said, waving with both hands. "Hi, Mia. You get tacos?" 3 kinds. That's the right move. Never commit to just one. They found a spot on the grass, away from the main crowd, and sat. Mia ate her tacos with the kind of focus she usually reserved for art projects, and Adrian and Sophie talked. "How's work?" she asked. "Same. Yours?" "Chaotic. We've got 5 projects running at once and half the team is out sick." "Sounds fun." "It's a nightmare, but I kind of love it." He smiled. "Of course you do." "What's that supposed to mean?" "You like the chaos. Admit it." She laughed. "Okay, fine, maybe a little." Mia finished her tacos and announced she wanted to explore. Adrian started to get up, but Sophie waved him off. "I'll go with her." "You stay. Relax." "You sure?" "Positive. Come on, Mia. Let's see what trouble we can get into." They ran off together, Mia chattering about something Adrian couldn't hear, and Sophie listening like it was the most important thing in the world. Adrian sat there on the grass, watching them disappear into the crowd, and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Not fear, not exhaustion, not the constant weight of holding everything together. Hope. It scared the hell out of him. That night, after Mia was asleep, Adrian sat on the couch with his phone in his hand. He'd been staring at the screen for 10 minutes, typing and deleting the same message over and over. Finally, he just typed it and hit send before he could second-guess himself. "Adrian, thanks for today." Mia had a great time. 3 dots appeared almost immediately. Sophie. "Me too. She's a great kid. You're doing something right." He stared at the message. Adrian. "Most days I'm not sure about that." Sophie. "Most days nobody is. But you show up. That's what matters." He didn't know what to say to that, so he sent back a simple, "Adrian, thanks." Sophie. "Any time. And I mean that." He set the phone down and leaned back against the couch, closing his eyes. For the first time in a long time, Adrian Blake let himself imagine what it might be like to stop running, to stop being afraid, to let someone in. And maybe, just maybe, that wouldn't be the end of the world. Maybe it would be the beginning of something else. Something he didn't have a name for yet, but something worth finding out. Eaton. The next Monday, Adrian walked into work and found Greg waiting by his desk. "Blake, conference room, now." Adrian's stomach dropped. "What's going on?" "Just come on." The conference room was empty except for Greg and Martin Langford, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Sit," Greg said. Adrian sat. Martin cleared his throat. "Adrian, we need to talk about your relationship with Sophie Carter." The world tilted. What? "People are talking," Greg said, "saying you two are getting close, that it might be affecting the project." "That's insane," Adrian said. "We've worked together maybe twice. Are you involved with her or not?" Martin asked bluntly. Adrian's mouth went dry. "No, I mean, we're friends. That's it." "Friends," Greg repeated, skeptical. "Yes." Martin and Greg exchanged a look. "Here's the problem," Martin said. "Sophie Carter isn't just a consultant. Her father is Richard Carter. He owns Langford Group. She's my boss's daughter." The air left the room. "I didn't know that," Adrian said quietly. "Well, now you do," Greg said. "And now you understand why this is a problem. If it looks like you're getting special treatment because you're friendly with the owner's daughter—" "I'm not getting special treatment," Adrian said. "I'm doing my job." "I believe you," Martin said. "But perception matters. And right now the perception is that you're too close to someone with a lot of power. That makes people nervous." Adrian felt something cold settle in his chest. "So what are you saying?" Greg leaned forward. "We're saying be careful. Keep it professional. Don't give anyone a reason to question your integrity." "Or hers," Martin added. Adrian nodded slowly. "Understood." "Good." Greg stood. "That's all." Adrian walked back to his desk, sat down, and stared at his computer screen without seeing it. His phone buzzed. "Sophie. Coffee tomorrow morning?" He looked at the message for a long time, then he typed, "Adrian, I don't think that's a good idea." 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. "Sophie. Did something happen?" Adrian. "I'll explain later." Sophie. "Okay." He set the phone down and put his head in his hands. This was exactly what he'd been afraid of. That letting someone in would cost him everything he'd worked so hard to protect. and now it was happening. And he didn't know how to stop it. Adrian didn't call Sophie back that day, or the next, or the one after that. He told himself it was the right thing to do, the smart thing. He had Mia to think about, a job to protect, a life that couldn't afford complications. Sophie Carter, daughter of Richard Carter, owner of Langford Group, was exactly the kind of complication that could destroy everything he'd rebuilt. But telling himself didn't make it easier. Every morning he walked past Brood Awakening and didn't go in. Every time his phone buzzed, he hoped it was her and dreaded it at the same time. Every night Mia asked when Sophie was coming over again, and he made excuses that sounded weaker each time. She's busy, Bug. Can we text her? Maybe later. You always say that. She was right. He always did. On Thursday, 5 days after the conference room conversation, Sophie showed up at his office. Adrian was at his desk, drowning in spreadsheets and site reports, when he heard her voice in the hallway. I just need 2 minutes. Ms. Carter, I really don't think... 2 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Adrian's stomach dropped. He stood up just as Sophie appeared in his doorway, looking determined and slightly pissed off. Greg's assistant, Jennifer, hovered behind her, wringing her hands. I'm sorry, Adrian, Jennifer said. She insisted. It's fine, Adrian said, even though it wasn't. Thanks, Jen. Jennifer left, casting one last worried glance over her shoulder. Sophie stepped into his office and closed the door. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Adrian stood there with his hands in his pockets, and Sophie stood by the door with her arms crossed, and the silence stretched between them like a wire pulled too tight. You're avoiding me, Sophie said finally. I'm not... Don't! Her voice was sharp. Don't lie to me, Adrian. You've ignored my texts, you won't answer my calls, and you've been walking past the coffee shop every morning like I don't exist. So yeah, you're avoiding me. He exhaled slowly. It's complicated. Then uncomplicate it. Talk to me. I can't. Why not? Because... He stopped, ran a hand through his hair. Because people are talking. Because your father owns the company I'm working with. Because if this looks wrong, I lose everything. Sophie's expression shifted, surprise, then something closer to anger. Who told you that? Does it matter? Yes, it matters. Who? Greg and Martin. Martin Langford. She said the name like it tasted bad. What did he say? That you're Richard Carter's daughter, that people think I'm getting special treatment because we're close. That I need to keep things professional before someone questions my integrity. Sophie was quiet for a long moment, and when she spoke again, her voice was calmer, but no less intense. Okay. First of all, my father doesn't interfere with my work, ever. He gave me this job because I earned it, not because I'm his daughter. Second, you're not getting special treatment. You're good at your job. That's it. And third, she stepped closer. Third, whoever told you that keeping your distance from me is the smart move doesn't know what the hell they're talking about. Sophie, I'm not finished. Her eyes locked on his. You think I don't know what people say about me? That I only got where I am because of my last name? I've been hearing that my entire career, and you know what I do? I work twice as hard. I prove them wrong. I don't run away from people who matter because someone might gossip. Adrian's throat tightened. You don't understand. Then make me understand. I can't afford to take risks, he said quietly. Not with my job. Not with Mia's stability. Everything I have is built on not screwing up. And getting involved with you... Getting involved with me what? She challenged. Ruins your reputation? Makes you look bad? Or scares you because it might actually be real? The words hit like a punch to the chest. He didn't answer. Sophie's expression softened just slightly. Adrian, I'm not asking you to blow up your life. I'm asking you to stop shutting me out. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. Do what? This, you. Letting someone in without everything falling apart. She took another step closer. They were close enough now that he could see the flecks of blue in her gray eyes, close enough that he had to force himself not to reach for her. What if it doesn't fall apart? She asked softly. What if it actually gets better? And what if it doesn't? Then we deal with it, together. He wanted to believe her. He wanted it so badly it hurt. But fear was a hard habit to break. I need time, he said finally, to figure this out. Sophie studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, take your time. But Adrian? She waited until he met her eyes. Don't take so long that you convince yourself this isn't worth it. She left without waiting for a response. Adrian stood there in his office, staring at the closed door, feeling like he'd just failed a test he didn't know he was taking. His phone buzzed. A text from Mia's school. Mia got into a fight today. Please come pick her up. His heart stopped. Mia was sitting in the principal's office when Adrian arrived, her arms crossed, her face red and blotchy from crying. There was a scrape on her knee and dirt on her shirt. Principal Hayes, a thin woman in her 50s with the kind of patience that had clearly been worn down over decades, looked up when Adrian walked in. Mr. Blake, thank you for coming. What happened? Adrian asked, moving immediately to Mia's side. Are you okay? Mia nodded, sniffling, but didn't look at him. Mia got into an altercation with another student during recess, Principal Hayes said carefully. Jackson Miller, he said something that upset her, and she reacted. I didn't start it, Mia said, her voice thick with tears. He started it. What did he say? Adrian asked. Principal Hayes hesitated. Perhaps we should discuss this privately. What did he say? Adrian repeated, his voice harder now. Mia looked up at him, her green eyes fierce even through the tears. He said you were dating Ms. Carter's sister because you wanted to be rich, and that Ms. Carter was only nice to me because she felt sorry for us. Adrian's blood went cold. He said his mom told him, Mia continued, her voice shaking, that people were talking about it, that you were using Sophie. And what did you do? Adrian asked quietly. I pushed him, and then he pushed me back, and then I hit him. Principal Hayes cleared her throat. Mia, violence is never the answer. He was lying, Mia shouted, fresh tears spilling over. He was saying mean things about my dad, and I told him to stop, and he didn't stop, so I made him stop. Adrian knelt down in front of her, took her hands in his. Mia, look at me. She did, reluctantly. You can't hit people, he said gently, even when they say things that aren't true, even when you're angry. You understand that? But he was lying, she whispered. I know, and that's not okay either, but hitting him doesn't fix it. It just makes things worse. She nodded, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. Adrian looked at Principal Hayes. What happens now? Both children will sit out recess for the rest of the week, she said, and I've asked Jackson's mother to come in as well. We need to address the rumors that are clearly affecting the students. Good, Adrian said flatly, because those rumors are bullshit. Principal Hayes raised an eyebrow but didn't correct his language. We'll make sure this doesn't happen again, she said. But Mr. Blake, if there are, external issues affecting Mia's emotional state, it might be helpful to address those as well. Adrian stood, jaw tight. Noted. He signed Mia out early, and they walked to the car in silence. She climbed into the back seat, buckled herself in, and stared out the window. Adrian got in the driver's seat and sat there for a moment, hands on the wheel, trying to breathe through the anger building in his chest. Dad? Mia's voice was small. Yeah? Are people really saying those things about you? He closed his eyes. Yeah, Bug. Some people are. Is it true? No, it's not true. Then why are they saying it? Because sometimes people make up stories when they don't understand something. And sometimes they say mean things because it makes them feel important. That's stupid. Yeah, it is. She was quiet for a moment. Then, do you like Sophie? Adrian's hands tightened on the wheel. Yeah, I do. Does she like you? I think so. Then why does it matter what other people say, out of the mouths of 8-year-olds? It's complicated, Adrian said. Grown-ups always say that when they don't want to explain things. She wasn't wrong. He turned in his seat to look at her. You're right. It does matter what people say. Not because they're right, but because sometimes what people say can hurt the people we care about. And I don't want you getting hurt because of choices I make. Mia frowned, thinking about this. But I already got hurt. Jackson hurt my feelings. And that wasn't because of what you did. That was because people are mean. Adrian felt something crack open in his chest. You're smarter than I am, he said quietly. I know, Mia said, and despite everything, he smiled. That evening, after Mia was in bed, Adrian sat on the couch with a beer he didn't really want and stared at his phone. He pulled up Sophie's contact, typed a message, deleted it, typed another one. Adrian, Mia got in a fight at school today because of the rumors about us. The response came almost immediately. Sopo fove. Is she okay? Adrian, physically, yeah. Emotionally, I don't know. Tofof Sophie. What happened? Adrian, another kid said I was using you to get ahead. She hit him. There was a long pause. Then, Sophie, I'm coming over. Adrian, you don't have to. Sophie, I'm already in my car. Sophie showed up 20 minutes later, still in her work clothes, hair pulled back, looking like she'd driven faster than she should have. Adrian opened the door before she could knock. Hi, she said. Hi. Can I come in? He stepped aside. She walked into the apartment, looked around like she was searching for something, then turned to face him. Where is she? Asleep, or pretending to be. Can I see her? Adrian hesitated, then nodded. They walked quietly down the hall to Mia's room. Adrian pushed the door open just enough to see inside. Mia was curled up under her blankets, her stuffed elephant, Mr. Trunk, a gift from her 3rd birthday, tucked under one arm. Sophie stood in the doorway, watching her, and when she turned back to Adrian, her expression was fierce. This isn't your fault, she said quietly. Feels like it is. It's not. People are going to talk no matter what you do. That's not on you. It's on me if it hurts her. Then we fix it. How? Sophie was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Let me talk to my father. No. Adrian, I'm not asking your father to clean up my mess. It's not your mess. It's gossip, and my father has dealt with worse. I don't want his help. Why not? Because that's exactly what people will say I'm doing. Using you. Using your connections. Sophie's jaw tightened. So what's your plan? Just let this keep happening? Let Mia keep getting hurt because you're too proud to accept help? It's not about pride. Then what is it about? It's about doing this on my own. The words came out louder than he meant them to. He took a breath. I've spent the last 2 years proving I can take care of her, that I don't need anyone else. And now what? Sophie's voice was softer. You're realizing you can't control everything? He looked away. Adrian. She stepped closer. Asking for help doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. I don't know how to do that. Then let me show you. He met her eyes, saw something there that made his chest ache. Not pity, not sympathy, but something steadier. Something that looked like she meant it. Okay, he said finally. Okay? Okay. Talk to your father, but I'm coming with you. Sophie smiled. Deal. Richard Carter's office was exactly what Adrian expected. Top floor, floor-to-ceiling windows, furniture that cost more than Adrian's car. The man himself was in his late 50s, fit, graying at the temples, with the kind of presence that filled a room without trying. He stood when they walked in, shook Adrian's hand with a grip that was firm but not aggressive. Mr. Blake, I've heard a lot about you. I'm sure you have, Adrian said evenly. Richard's mouth twitched, not quite a smile, but close. Sit, both of you. They sat. Richard leaned back in his chair, studying Adrian with the kind of gaze that had probably made a lot of people very uncomfortable over the years. Sophie tells me there's been some gossip about the two of you. Yes, sir. And it's affecting your daughter. Yes, sir. Richard nodded slowly. That's unacceptable. I agree, Adrian said, but I'm not here to ask you to fix it for me. I'm here because Sophie insisted, and because I want to be clear about something. Which is? I'm not with your daughter because of who you are. I didn't even know who you were until a week ago. And whatever people are saying, that I'm using her, that I'm getting special treatment, none of it's true. Richard's expression didn't change. I know. Adrian blinked. You... what? I know it's not true. I've had people looking into it. You had people. Adrian's jaw tightened. You investigated me? I investigate everyone who gets close to my daughter, Richard said calmly. It's not personal. It's practical. Sophie groaned. Dad, And what I found, Richard continued, ignoring her, is that you're exactly who you appear to be. A project coordinator with a clean record, no debt beyond student loans, and full custody of your daughter. You show up on time, you do good work, and you keep your head down. In other words, you're boring. Gee, thanks, Adrian muttered. Richard smiled, actually smiled. I mean that as a compliment. Boring is reliable. Boring doesn't cause problems. He leaned forward. But here's what I don't understand. If you're as smart as your work suggests, why are you letting middle management idiots dictate your personal life? Adrian opened his mouth, closed it. Martin Langford is the competent administrator, Richard said. But he's also a coward who cares more about appearances than results. If he told you to stay away from Sophie to protect your reputation, he was protecting his own ass, not yours. Dad, Sophie said, you're not helping. I'm getting to it. Richard turned back to Adrian. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to make it very clear to everyone involved that Sophie's personal life is none of their business, and that anyone spreading rumors about her, or about you, will answer to me. I'm also going to have a conversation with Martin about professional boundaries and the difference between perception and reality. I don't want special treatment, Adrian said. This isn't special treatment. This is me protecting my employees from harassment. If someone else in your position was dealing with this, I'd do the same thing. Richard's gaze sharpened. But I'm also going to be blunt with you, Mr. Blake. If you hurt my daughter, boring or not, I will make your life very difficult. Are we clear? Crystal, Adrian said. Good. Richard stood, signaling the meeting was over. Sophie, I'll see you for dinner on Sunday. Mr. Blake, I expect to see continued good work from you, and for what it's worth, he paused at the door. I think you're good for her. Don't screw it up. He left. Adrian and Sophie sat there in silence for a moment. Well, Sophie said finally, that went better than expected. Your father is terrifying. I know, but he likes you. How can you tell? He threatened you. That's how he shows affection. Adrian laughed despite himself. Your family is insane. You have no idea, Shab. The rumors didn't stop overnight, but they quieted. Martin Langford sent out a company-wide email about professionalism and respect in the workplace that was so carefully worded it said everything and nothing at once. Greg stopped giving Adrian meaningful looks across the conference table. And Jackson Miller's mother, it turned out, got a very polite but very firm phone call from Richard Carter's office about teaching her son not to bully other children. Mia went back to school. No one bothered her, and slowly, carefully, Adrian stopped pulling away. It started small. Coffee with Sophie before work. A text in the middle of the day just to check in. A walk in the park on Saturday while Mia played with other kids. Then Sophie started coming over for dinner again. Once a week at first, then twice. Then it just became routine. She'd show up with groceries or takeout, help Mia with homework, stay until bedtime. One evening, 3 weeks after the meeting with her father, Mia looked up from her math worksheet and asked, "Is Sophie your girlfriend?" Adrian, who had been washing dishes, froze. Sophie, who had been helping Mia with fractions, met his eyes across the kitchen. "That's a good question," Sophie said carefully. "What do you think?" "I think you're here all the time," Mia said, "and you make Dad smile, and he never smiles." "I smile," Adrian protested. "Not like that," Mia said matter-of-factly. Sophie bit back a grin. "Well, your dad and I really like each other, and we're figuring out what that means." "Does that mean you're going to get married?" "Mia," Adrian started, "I'm just asking." Sophie laughed. "I don't know about that, but I do know that I like spending time with you and your dad. Is that okay with you?" Mia thought about it. "Yeah, it's okay, but if you get married, can we get a dog?" "We're not getting a dog," Adrian said. "You always say that." "Because it's always true." Mia sighed dramatically and went back to her worksheet, clearly considering the conversation closed. Sophie walked over to where Adrian was standing at the sink, drying her hands on a towel. "So," she said quietly, "are we figuring out what this means?" He looked at her, really looked at her, at the way she fit into his apartment, into his life, into the space he'd convinced himself had no room for anyone else. "Yeah," he said. "I think we are." She smiled. "Good, because I'm not going anywhere. Even if I'm boring? Especially because you're boring." He kissed her. right there in the kitchen, with Mia 10 feet away pretending not to notice. It was brief, careful, but it was real. When he pulled back, Sophie was still smiling. "Took you long enough?" she whispered. "Yeah," he agreed. It did. On. But even as things started to feel steady, Adrian couldn't shake the feeling that the other shoe was going to drop. He'd learned the hard way that stability was temporary, that the moment you started to relax, the moment you let yourself believe things might actually be okay, that's when everything fell apart. And he was right to be afraid, because 2 weeks later, Lauren called. Adrian was at work when his phone rang, her name flashing on the screen. He stared at it for 3 rings before answering. "Lauren." "Adrian, hi." Her voice was tight, uncomfortable. They hadn't spoken in months. "Is this a bad time?" "I'm at work." "Right, of course." A pause. "I need to talk to you about Mia." His stomach dropped. "What about her?" "I want to revisit the custody arrangement." The world stopped. "What?" "I've been thinking about it," Lauren said, speaking faster now, like she'd rehearsed this. "And I don't think it's fair that you have her full time. I'm her mother. I should be more involved." "You haven't been involved," Adrian said, his voice cold. "You chose not to be involved. That's not fair. You moved across the state. You see her maybe once every 2 months. You don't come to her school events. You don't call. And now you want to revisit custody? People change, Adrian. I've changed, and I think Mia deserves to have both her parents in her life equally." "This isn't about what Mia deserves. This is about you feeling guilty." "Maybe it is," Lauren admitted, "but that doesn't make it wrong." Adrian closed his eyes, forced himself to breathe. "What are you asking for?" "Shared custody, 50-50, alternating weeks." "No." "Adrian, absolutely not. Mia's life is here. Her school, her friends, her routine. You can't just upend all of that because you suddenly decided you want to be a parent again." "I'm not asking for permission," Lauren said, and there was steel in her voice now. "I'm telling you what I'm planning to do. I've already talked to a lawyer." The line went dead. Adrian sat there, phone in his hand, feeling like the floor had just opened up beneath him. Everything he'd fought for, everything he'd built, all of it was about to be ripped away. And there was nothing he could do to stop it. Adrian told Sophie that night. They were sitting on his couch after Mia had gone to bed, half watching some movie neither of them cared about, and the words came out before he could stop them. "Lauren wants custody." Sophie's head turned sharply. "What?" "She called today, said she wants to revisit the arrangement, 50-50, alternating weeks." His voice sounded flat, even to his own ears, like he was reading from a script. "Can she do that?" "She can try. She's already got a lawyer." Sophie was quiet for a moment, processing. Then she shifted closer, her hand finding his. "What are you going to do?" "Fight it." He said it like it was obvious, because it was. "I'm not letting her take Mia." "Does Mia know?" "Not yet. I don't know how to tell her." "You'll figure it out," Sophie said, and he wanted to believe her, but the certainty in her voice felt distant, like something happening to someone else. "What if I lose?" The question came out quieter than he meant it to. "You won't. You don't know that." "No," Sophie admitted. "But I know you, and I know you're not going to let this happen without a fight." He looked at her, really looked at her, and saw something that scared him more than Lauren's phone call. Sophie believed in him, completely, without hesitation, and that kind of faith felt like a weight he didn't know how to carry. "I need to talk to a lawyer," he said. "I can help with that. My father knows people." "No." The word came out sharper than he intended. "I can't keep asking your father to fix my problems." "This isn't fixing. This is just pointing you in the right direction." "It's the same thing." Sophie pulled her hand back, and Adrian immediately regretted his tone. "I'm sorry," he said. I need to handle this myself." "Why?" "Because asking for help makes you weak. Because I need to prove I can do this." "To who? Lauren? The court? Or yourself?" He didn't answer because he didn't know. Sophie stood up, grabbed her jacket from the back of the chair. "I'm going to go." "Sophie, no, it's fine. You need space to think, and I need to not say something I'll regret." She paused at the door, turned back. "But Adrian?" At some point, you're going to have to decide if you trust me enough to let me help, because I can't keep doing this if you won't." She left before he could respond. Adrian sat there in the silence, staring at the closed door, feeling like he'd just failed another test he didn't know he was taking. His phone buzzed. A text from Sophie. "Sophie, I'm not mad. I'm just tired of watching you carry everything alone when you don't have to." He stared at the message for a long time before typing back. Adrian, "I know. I'm sorry." Sophie, "Get a lawyer. Fight for your daughter. And when you're ready to let me in, I'll be here." Adrian, "Okay." It wasn't enough. He knew it wasn't enough, but it was all he had. Weird. The next morning, Adrian called a lawyer. Her name was Patricia Nguyen, and she came recommended by one of the guys at work whose brother had gone through a messy divorce. She had an office downtown, small but professional, with diplomas on the wall and a no-nonsense demeanor that made Adrian feel slightly less like he was drowning. "Tell me what's happening," Patricia said, pen poised over a legal pad. Adrian laid it out. The divorce, the original custody agreement, Lauren's absence over the past 2 years, the phone call. Patricia listened without interrupting, taking notes in handwriting Adrian couldn't read. When he finished, she set down her pen and leaned back in her chair. "Okay, first thing you need to know. Custody modifications are hard to get, but they're not impossible. The court's primary concern is what's in the best interest of the child. Lauren will have to prove that sharing custody equally serves Mia better than the current arrangement. Can she do that? Depends. Has Lauren been paying child support?" "Every month, on time." "So," Patricia nodded. "That helps her case. It shows she's been financially responsible even if she hasn't been physically present. What about visitation? Has she been exercising her rights?" "She's supposed to get Mia 1 weekend a month. She's only shown up for maybe half of them in the last year." "That helps you. Inconsistency in visitation shows lack of commitment." Patricia tapped her pen against the legal pad. "But here's the thing. Courts like both parents to be involved. If Lauren can demonstrate that she's made changes, that she's stable now and genuinely wants to be part of Mia's life, the judge might see this as a positive step." Adrian's stomach twisted. "So I could lose." "You could, but so could she. These things are unpredictable." Patricia leaned forward. "What I need from you is documentation. Every missed visit, every late pickup, every time she canceled plans or didn't show up to a school event. If you've got texts, emails, anything showing a pattern of inconsistency, I want copies." "I have some of that." "Good. Get me everything you have. I'll also need character references, people who can attest to your parenting, your stability, your relationship with Mia." "How many?" 3 or 4 would be ideal. Teachers, neighbors, coworkers. People who've seen you with Mia and can speak to what kind of father you are." Adrian nodded, feeling the weight of it settling on his shoulders. "One more thing," Patricia said. "How's Mia doing? Emotionally, I mean." "She's good, happy, doing well in school. And if the court asks her what she wants?" Adrian's chest tightened. "I don't know. I haven't asked her." "You might want to. Depending on the judge, Mia's preference could carry weight. She's old enough to have an opinion." The thought of putting Mia in that position, of making her choose between her parents, made Adrian feel sick. "I'll think about it," he said. Patricia handed him a business card with a list of documents written on the back. "Get me this information as soon as you can. And Adrian, don't do anything stupid. Don't badmouth Lauren to Mia. Don't withhold visitation. Don't give them any ammunition to use against you." "I won't." "Good. We'll talk soon." Adrian spent that evening going through his phone, his email, his calendar. 2 years of records. 2 years of Lauren's absence cataloged in missed calls and canceled plans and messages that always started with, "I'm sorry, but something came up." He printed everything, organized it into folders, felt like he was building a case against the mother of his child, and hated every second of it. Mia wandered into the kitchen around 8, already in her pajamas, Mr. Trunk tucked under one arm. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Just some work stuff," Adrian lied. She climbed into the chair beside him, peering at the papers spread across the table. "That's a lot of work." "Yeah. Can I help?" "Not with this one, Bug." She was quiet for a moment, swinging her legs. Then, "Dad?" "Yeah?" Is something wrong? He looked at her too smart eyes and her tangled curls, and the way she always seemed to know when he was lying. Why do you ask? Because you're acting weird, and you and Sophie had a fight. We didn't have a fight. You kind of did. She left early, and you looked sad after. Adrian sighed, rubbed his face. Yeah, okay. We kind of did. Are you breaking up? No, we just disagreed about something. What? Grown-up stuff. Mia rolled her eyes. You always say that. Because it's always true. She studied him for a long moment. Then, in a smaller voice, Is it about Mom? Adrian's hands stilled. What makes you think that? Because you're looking at old messages, and some of them are from her. I saw her name. He should have known she'd notice. Yeah, he admitted. It's about Mom. What about her? Adrian took a breath. He'd been trying to figure out how to have this conversation, and apparently the universe had decided for him. Your mom called me yesterday, he said carefully. She wants to see you more. Spend more time with you. Mia's expression didn't change. How much more? She's talking about you staying with her half the time. Like 1 week with me, 1 week with her. Every week? Yeah. Mia was quiet for a long moment, processing. Then she said, I don't want to do that. Why not? Because I live here. My school is here. My friends are here. And Mom doesn't... She stopped, picking at a loose thread on Mr. Trunk's ear. She doesn't really want me. Not really. She just feels bad. The words hit Adrian like a fist to the chest. Mia, it's okay, Dad. I'm not sad about it anymore. She said it matter-of-factly, like she was talking about the weather. I used to be. But then I figured out that some people just aren't good at being parents, and that's not my fault. Adrian didn't know what to say. His 8-year-old daughter had just summed up 2 years of therapy he'd never be able to afford in one sentence. You're right, he said finally. It's not your fault. None of this is your fault. So do I have to go live with her? I don't know yet. That's what the lawyer is helping me figure out. You got a lawyer? Yeah. Does that mean we're going to court? Maybe. Mia nodded slowly. If we go to court, will they ask me what I want? They might. And if they do, I can say I want to stay with you? You can say whatever you want, whatever's true for you. She thought about this, then, okay, I'll tell them I want to stay here with you and Sophie. Sophie. Yeah, because she's part of our family now, right? Adrian's throat tightened. Yeah, Bug, she is. Good. Mia hopped down from the chair, apparently satisfied. I'm going to bed. Can you tuck me in? Of course. He followed her to her room, pulled the blankets up to her chin, kissed her forehead. Dad? She said as he reached the door. Yeah? You're a really good dad. Just so you know. He had to wait a moment before he could speak. Thanks, Bug. You're a pretty great kid. I know, she said, grinning. He closed the door and stood there in the hallway, trying to breathe through the feeling in his chest. Then he pulled out his phone and texted Sophie. Adrian. Can we talk? The response came immediately. Sophie. Yes? Now? Adrian. Yeah. Sophie. I'll be there in 15 minutes. She showed up in 12. Adrian opened the door and she walked in without saying anything, just wrapped her arms around him and held on. He let her. Let himself lean into it. Let himself stop holding everything together for just a minute. I'm sorry, he said into her hair. I know. I don't know how to do this. I know that too. But I want to try. She pulled back just enough to look at him. Yeah? Yeah. I talked to Mia. She said you're part of our family now. Sophie's eyes went bright. She said that? Word for word. That kid's going to make me cry. Join the club. Sophie laughed, wiping her eyes. Okay, so what do you need from me? How can I help? I need character references. For the lawyer. People who can say I'm not a terrible parent. You're not a terrible parent. You're an incredible parent. Will you write me a reference? Absolutely. What else? I need you to keep showing up, even when I'm an idiot, even when I push you away. I can do that. And I need you to tell me when I'm being an idiot, because apparently I'm not great at noticing. She smiled. I've noticed. He kissed her then, properly this time, and when they broke apart, she was still smiling. We're going to get through this, she said. You sound sure. I am sure, because you're not doing it alone anymore. Over the next 2 weeks, Adrian built his case. He got a reference letter from Mia's teacher, Emma Carter, who wrote 3 pages about Mia's progress, her emotional stability, and the clear evidence of a strong support system at home. She didn't mention that her sister was dating Mia's father, but she didn't need to. The letter spoke for itself. He got another from Mrs. Chen, the neighbor who babysat, who wrote about the kind of father who always showed up on time, who never asked for more than he'd paid for, who clearly put his daughter first in every decision. Greg, surprisingly, offered to write one too. It was brief but effective, a testament to Adrian's reliability, his work ethic, and the fact that he'd never let his personal life interfere with his professional responsibilities. Sophie's came last. 2 pages, single-spaced, detailing every moment she'd witnessed between Adrian and Mia. The homework help and the bedtime routines, and the way Mia lit up when she talked about her dad. It was specific and honest and probably the most valuable thing he'd give Patricia. Patricia called it a strong case. Lauren's going to have to work hard to overcome this, she said during their next meeting. You've got consistency, stability, and a clear track record. Plus, Mia's preference carries weight at her age. When will we know if it's going to court? Soon. Lauren's lawyer will file the motion, we'll respond, and then it's up to the judge to decide if there's enough merit to proceed. And if there is, then we prepare for a fight. The motion came 2 days later. Adrian was at work when Patricia called. They filed, she said without preamble. Hearing set for 3 weeks from now. Adrian's stomach dropped. That fast? Family court moves quickly when custody's involved. I'm sending you the paperwork now. Read through it. Let me know if anything stands out. He read it that night after Mia went to bed. Lauren's argument was predictable but effective. She'd been absent due to work obligations and personal circumstances beyond her control, but she'd since stabilized her life and wanted to provide Mia with a relationship with both parents. She emphasized her consistent financial support, her desire to be involved, and her belief that shared custody would benefit Mia's emotional development. There was nothing outrageous in it, nothing Adrian could point to and say was a lie, which somehow made it worse. Sophie found him at the kitchen table at midnight, staring at the motion for the 100th time. Come to bed, she said gently. I can't. Adrian, what if she's right? The words came out before he could stop them. What if Mia does need her mother more involved? What if I've been selfish keeping her away? Sophie sat down across from him. You haven't been keeping her away. Lauren chose to leave. You've just been doing what you had to do to take care of your daughter. But what if it's not enough? It is enough. And you know how I know? Because Mia is happy. She's thriving. She feels safe and loved and supported. You did that. We did that, Adrian corrected. You've been part of this too. Maybe, but you were doing it long before I showed up. Sophie reached across the table, took his hand. Stop second-guessing yourself. You're a good father, the best father, and any judge with half a brain is going to see that. He wanted to believe her. He really did. But fear was louder than hope. The week before the hearing, everything started falling apart. It started at work. Adrian was in the middle of a site meeting when Greg pulled him aside. We need to talk. About what? About the fact that you're distracted. You missed 2 deadlines this week. You were late to the partners meeting yesterday. And Johnson said you snapped at him over something minor. Adrian's jaw tightened. I've got a lot going on. I know. Sophie told me about the custody thing. Of course she had. Look, Greg said, and his voice was gentler now. I get it. This is hard, but you can't let it affect your work. We've got a major presentation next week and I need you focused. I am focused. You're not. And if you keep this up, it's going to be a problem. Adrian wanted to argue, wanted to defend himself, but Greg was right, and they both knew it. I'll do better, Adrian said. See that you do. Hotet. Then Mia got sick. Nothing serious, just a stomach bug going around her school. But it meant 2 days home from school, 2 days Adrian couldn't afford to miss work, but had to anyway because there was no one else. Mrs. Chen was visiting her daughter in another state. Sophie offered to stay with Mia, but Adrian couldn't ask her to take time off for his kid. So he called in sick, spent 2 days watching cartoons and making bland food. Mia could keep down and tried not to think about the deadlines piling up at work. On the second day, Mia asked, "Are you mad at me?" "What? No. Why would I be mad?" "Because I made you miss work." "Bug, you didn't make me do anything. You're sick. I'm your dad. This is what I do." "But you're worried. I can tell." She was right. Of course she was right. "I'm worried about a lot of things," Adrian admitted, "but you're not one of them. You're the easy part." She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. The night before the hearing, Adrian couldn't sleep. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, running through every possible outcome, every argument Patricia had coached him on, every worst-case scenario his brain could conjure. At 2 in the morning, he gave up and went to the living room. Sophie was there, sitting on the couch with her laptop. "Can't sleep either?" she asked. "What are you doing up?" "Working. Figured if I couldn't sleep, I might as well be productive." She closed the laptop. "Come here." He sat beside her, and she pulled him close, her hand running through his hair. "Whatever happens tomorrow," she said quietly, "we'll deal with it." "What if I lose her?" "You won't." "You don't know that." "No, but I know you. And I know that no matter what the court says, you're not going to stop being her father. You're not going to stop fighting for her. What if fighting isn't enough?" Sophie pulled back, made him look at her. "Then we'll figure out the next step, together." "But Adrian, you have to stop assuming the worst before it even happens. You've been living in worst-case scenarios for so long you've forgotten what hope looks like." He didn't know what to say to that. "Tomorrow," Sophie said, "you're going to walk into that courtroom with your head up. You're going to tell the truth, and you're going to trust that the truth is enough. And if it's not, then we'll deal with that too." She kissed him, slow and steady, and for the first time in weeks, Adrian let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, things would be okay. The courtroom was smaller than Adrian expected. Sterile, beige walls and fluorescent lights and the kind of furniture that had seen too many broken families pass through. Patricia was already there, sitting at a table on the left, papers organized in neat stacks. She gave Adrian a small nod as he walked in. Lauren was on the right side of the room with her lawyer, a sharp-looking woman in a navy suit. Lauren looked different than Adrian remembered, thinner, more polished, like she'd been trying to prove something. They didn't make eye contact. Sophie sat in the gallery behind Adrian. She'd wanted to be there, and Adrian hadn't fought her on it. Her presence felt like a lifeline. The judge entered, a woman in her 50s named Judge Reeves, with steel gray hair and an expression that gave nothing away. "Please be seated." Everyone sat. Judge Reeves looked over her notes, then at both lawyers. "This is a motion to modify custody in the matter of Blake. Miss Nguyen, Mr. Blake is the custodial parent seeking to maintain the current arrangement. Ms. Thornton, Ms. Lauren Blake is seeking shared custody. Is that correct?" "Yes, Your Honor," both lawyers said. "All right, Ms. Thornton, you may begin." Lauren's lawyer stood, and Adrian's hands clenched under the table. This was it. Everything he'd fought for, everything he'd built, all of it came down to what happened in the next hour. And he had no idea if it would be enough. Lauren's lawyer, Ms. Thornton, stood with the kind of confidence that came from winning cases like this before. "Your Honor, my client acknowledges that the past 2 years have been difficult. The divorce was painful for everyone involved, and Ms. Blake made the difficult decision to step back temporarily to allow both herself and her daughter space to heal." Adrian's jaw tightened. Stepped back temporarily. That was one way to put it. "However," Ms. Thornton continued, "Ms. Blake has spent this time addressing her own emotional well-being, stabilizing her career, and preparing to be the mother Mia deserves. She has been consistently providing financial support, and she's now in a position to offer Mia a stable, loving home environment on a shared basis." Judge Reeves made a note. "And what exactly is Ms. Blake proposing?" "Alternating weeks, Your Honor. 1 week with her father, 1 week with her mother. Ms. Blake lives approximately 40 minutes from Mia's current school, which is manageable for transportation purposes." 40 minutes is a significant commute for an 8-year-old child, Judge Reeves observed. "My client is prepared to handle all transportation and ensure Mia arrives at school on time." I see. Go on. Ms. Thornton pulled out a folder, handed copies to the judge and Patricia. We've provided documentation showing Ms. Blake's current employment status, her stable housing situation, and character references from colleagues and friends who can attest to her commitment to rebuilding her relationship with her daughter. Patricia leaned over, whispered to Adrian. Standard stuff. Nothing we didn't expect. But Adrian's hands were sweating anyway. Ms. Thornton spent the next 10 minutes laying out Lauren's case. Her job as a marketing director at a pharmaceutical company. Her 2-bedroom apartment with a room already set up for Mia. Her involvement in therapy to address the issues that had contributed to the divorce. It was polished, professional, and made Lauren sound like a completely different person than the woman who'd called crying at midnight 2 years ago, saying she couldn't do this anymore. When Ms. Thornton finished, Judge Reeves turned to Patricia. Miss Nguyen? Patricia stood and Adrian tried to breathe. Your Honor, my client has been Mia's primary caregiver for the past 2 years, not by choice, but by necessity. When Ms. Blake decided she needed space, Mr. Blake stepped up. He rearranged his entire life to ensure Mia had stability, routine, and unwavering support. Patricia walked the judge through Adrian's documentation. The attendance record showing he'd never missed a parent-teacher conference. The medical record showing every appointment, every vaccination, every late-night emergency room visit for ear infections and stomach bugs. The school report showing Mia's academic progress and emotional stability. Mr. Blake didn't just maintain the status quo, Your Honor. He created a home. And now, 2 years later, Miss Blake wants to disrupt that home based on her own timeline, not Mia's needs. That's unfair. Lauren started, but her lawyer put a hand on her arm. Judge Reeves raised an eyebrow. Ms. Blake, you'll have an opportunity to speak. Ms. Nguyen, continue. We're not arguing that Ms. Blake shouldn't have a relationship with her daughter. We're arguing that uprooting Mia from the only stable home she's known for the past 2 years isn't in her best interest. Alternating weeks means new routines, longer commutes, and constant disruption. Mia is thriving where she is. Why change that? Judge Reeves made more notes. I'd like to hear from both parents directly. Mr. Blake, you first. Adrian stood. His legs felt unsteady. Mr. Blake, tell me about your relationship with your daughter. He cleared his throat. Mia's my whole world. Has been since the day she was born. When her mother and I divorced, I was scared. I didn't know if I could do it alone, but I figured it out because I had to. Because she needed me. What does a typical week look like for you and Mia? I wake her up at 7. Make breakfast, usually scrambled eggs or oatmeal, nothing fancy. We leave for school by 7:30 because I drop her off on my way to work. I pick her up at 3:15, take her to the park if the weather's good, help with homework. We have dinner together every night. I read to her before bed, even though she says she's too old for it now. And on weekends, we do normal stuff. Library on Saturday mornings, grocery shopping, sometimes the park or a movie if she's been good. Nothing exciting, but it's ours. Judge Reeves nodded. And how do you think Mia would feel about spending alternating weeks with her mother? Adrian hesitated. I think she'd be confused and hurt. Not because she doesn't love her mother, but because her mother hasn't been consistent. Mia's learned not to count on things that aren't reliable. Has Mia expressed a preference? She told me she wants to stay with me. Did you encourage her to say that? No, Your Honor. I asked her what she wanted, and she told me. Judge Reeves turned to Lauren. Ms. Blake, your turn. Lauren stood. She looked nervous, which surprised Adrian. He'd expected her to be composed, rehearsed. Ms. Blake, why do you want shared custody now? Because I made a mistake. Lauren's voice cracked slightly. I thought walking away would make things easier for everyone, but I was wrong. I've spent 2 years regretting that decision, and I want to fix it. What makes you think you're ready now? I've been in therapy. I have a stable job, a good apartment. I've worked on myself. And I miss my daughter. I miss being her mother. Have you been exercising your visitation rights? Lauren hesitated. Not as consistently as I should have. Why not? It was hard, seeing her and then having to leave. It felt like ripping off a bandage every time. So sometimes I didn't go. Judge Reeves' expression didn't change, but Adrian saw something flicker in her eyes. So you found it too painful to see your daughter for a few hours a month, but now you want her for entire weeks? It's different now, Lauren said quickly. I'm stronger. I'm ready. What happens if it gets hard again? If Mia has a bad week or you're overwhelmed, do you walk away again? I won't. I promise. Ms. Blake, the court doesn't operate on promises. It operates on demonstrated behavior. And your demonstrated behavior shows a pattern of inconsistency. Lauren's lawyer stood. Your Honor, people are allowed to grow and change. My client has shown genuine remorse and genuine effort to improve herself. I'm not disputing that. But this isn't about Ms. Blake's growth. It's about what's best for Mia. Judge Reeves looked at both parents. I'd like to speak with Mia myself. Adrian's heart stopped. Patricia leaned over. This is good. Mia's smart. She'll be fine. But Adrian couldn't shake the image of his 8-year-old daughter being questioned in a courtroom. She's in school right now, Your Honor, Patricia said. Then we'll reconvene after school. 3 o'clock. Bring Mia to my chambers. Judge Reeves stood. Court is in recess. Adrian called the school from the courthouse hallway. This is Adrian Blake. I need to pick up my daughter at 2:30 today. Is everything all right, Mr. Blake? Yeah, just a family thing. Of course. We'll have her ready. He hung up and leaned against the wall, trying to breathe. Sophie appeared at his elbow. How are you holding up? I have to bring Mia here. The judge wants to talk to her. That's good, right? Mia will tell the truth. I don't want her anywhere near this. His voice came out harsher than he meant. She's 8. She shouldn't have to choose between her parents. She's not choosing. She's just answering questions. It's the same thing. Sophie took his hand. Adrian, Mia's tougher than you think. She can handle this. What if she can't? Then you'll be there to help her through it, like you always are. Mia was waiting in the school office when Adrian arrived, backpack on, looking confused. Dad, what's going on? Am I in trouble? No, Bug. You're not in trouble. Then why are you picking me up early? He crouched down to her level. Remember how I told you about the court thing with your mom? Her face went serious. Yeah. The judge wants to talk to you, ask you some questions about what you want. Today? Yeah, right now, actually. Mia was quiet for a moment, processing. Okay. What kind of questions? Probably about where you want to live, how you feel about things. And I can say whatever I want? You can say whatever's true. She nodded, squared her small shoulders. Okay, let's go. Judge Reeves's chambers were less intimidating than the courtroom. Bookcases, a desk, 2 chairs facing each other. She'd taken off her robe and looked somehow more human in a simple blouse and slacks. Mia, I'm Judge Reeves. You can call me Judge Sarah if that's easier. Mia looked at Adrian, who nodded. It's okay, Bug. Just answer her questions honestly. Mr. Blake, I'll need you to wait outside, Judge Reeves said gently. Adrian's stomach dropped. I can't stay? This needs to be a private conversation. Patricia and Ms. Thornton are waiting outside as well. Dad, it's okay, Mia said, and her voice was steadier than his. I'll be fine. Adrian looked at Judge Reeves, who gave him a small nod. Okay, he said. He kissed the top of Mia's head. I'll be right outside. He left, pulling the door closed behind him, and stood in the hallway feeling like someone had hollowed out his chest. Patricia was there, looking calm. She'll be fine. You don't know that. Actually, I do. Mia's smart and she knows what she wants. Trust her. Lauren was at the other end of the hall with Ms. Thornton pacing. She looked as nervous as Adrian felt. 20 minutes passed, then 30. Finally, the door opened. Mia came out first, looking tired but okay. She walked straight to Adrian and hugged him. You all right? He asked quietly. Yeah, she was nice. Judge Reeves appeared in the doorway. All counsel and parents, please return to the courtroom. Back in the courtroom, Judge Reeves took her seat and reviewed her notes for what felt like an eternity. Finally, she looked up. I've reviewed all the evidence presented, spoken with both parents, and had a conversation with Mia. This is what I've decided. Adrian's hands gripped the edge of the table. Ms. Blake, I commend you for the work you've done on yourself. Therapy is difficult, and acknowledging mistakes takes courage. However, this case isn't about rewarding personal growth. It's about what serves Mia's best interests. Lauren's face went pale. Mia is currently thriving in her father's care. She's doing well academically, she has a stable routine, and she's emotionally secure. Disrupting that with alternating weeks would, in my opinion, cause more harm than good. Adrian's chest loosened slightly. That said, Judge Reeves continued, I do believe Mia should have a relationship with her mother. The current arrangement of 1 weekend a month is insufficient. Therefore, I'm modifying the custody agreement as follows. Adrian's relief evaporated. Mr. Blake will retain primary physical custody. However, Miss Blake will have visitation every other weekend, Friday evening through Sunday evening, plus 1 evening during the week for dinner. Additionally, holidays will be split equally. Lauren let out a breath that sounded like a sob. This arrangement will be reviewed in 6 months, Judge Reeves said. If Ms. Blake demonstrates consistent involvement and Mia's adjustment is positive, we can revisit the possibility of expanded custody at that time. But for now, stability is the priority. She banged the gavel. Court is adjourned. Adrian sat there, unable to move. He'd won. Mostly. Mia was still his, still home. But the fear, the possibility that this could all be taken away, it was still there, just postponed. Patricia was talking to him, saying something about this being a good outcome. But Adrian couldn't hear her over the ringing in his ears. He looked across the courtroom. Lauren was crying, Ms. Thornton's hand on her shoulder. For a moment, Adrian felt something unexpected. Pity. She'd lost. Not just the case, but 2 years with her daughter that she'd never get back. But then he thought about Mia sitting outside, waiting to hear if her life was about to be turned upside down. And the pity disappeared. Lauren had made her choices, and Adrian had made his. Outside the courthouse, Sophie was waiting with Mia on a bench, the two of them sharing a bag of chips from a vending machine. Dad! Mia ran over, chips forgotten. Did you win? Yeah, Bug, we won. So I get to stay with you? You get to stay with me. She hugged him so hard he could barely breathe. I knew you'd win. How'd you know? Because you're my dad. Dads don't lose. He wished that were true. Sophie walked over, reading his expression. You okay? Yeah, I think so. What happened? I'll tell you later. Right now I just want to go home. Then let's go home. That night, after Mia was asleep, Adrian sat on the couch with Sophie and told her everything. The judge's decision, the expanded visitation, the 6-month review. So it's not really over, he said. No, but you won the important part. Mia stays with you. For now. Adrian. Sophie turned to face him. You have to stop waiting for the other shoe to drop. You won. Take the win. What if I screw up? What if Lauren's perfect for the next 6 months and the judge changes her mind? Then you deal with it, but you can't spend the next 6 months living in fear of something that might not happen. I don't know how to do that. Then learn, because this, she gestured at the space between them. This doesn't work if you're always waiting for everything to fall apart. He knew she was right. He also knew that knowing and doing were two different things. I'm trying, he said quietly. I know, and I'm not going anywhere. But Adrian, at some point you're going to have to trust that this is real, that we're real, that things can actually be okay. What if they're not? Then we'll figure it out, together. How many times do I have to say that before you believe me? He didn't have an answer. Sophie stood up, grabbed her jacket. I'm going to go. Sophie, I'm not mad. I'm just tired, and I think you need some space to process everything that happened today. She kissed him, briefly, and left. Adrian sat there in the silence of his apartment, feeling like he'd just won a battle, but lost something else he couldn't quite name. The next few weeks were strange. Life went back to normal, or as normal as it could be. Work, school, routines. But something felt off. Adrian couldn't shake the feeling that he was waiting for something to go wrong. Lauren's first weekend visit came and went without incident. She picked Mia up on Friday evening, brought her back Sunday night. Mia seemed fine, maybe a little quiet, but fine. The second weekend was harder. Mia came home Sunday night upset, not crying, but withdrawn. What happened? Adrian asked. Nothing. Bug, you can tell me. Mom kept asking me questions. What kind of questions? About you and Sophie, and if I liked living with you or if I wanted to stay with her more. Adrian's jaw tightened. What did you say? I said I liked living with you, and she got sad. Then she said it was okay, and we could talk about it another time. Mia looked up at him. Did I say something wrong? No, you said exactly what you felt. That's never wrong. But inside, Adrian was furious. He called Patricia the next morning. Lauren's trying to manipulate Mia, asking leading questions about custody during visitation. Did Mia tell you this? Yes. Okay, document it. Write down exactly what Mia said when she said it. If it continues, we can bring it to the judge's attention at the 6-month review. And in the meantime? In the meantime, keep being the stable parent. Don't retaliate. Don't badmouth Lauren. Just be consistent. Adrian hung up, feeling helpless. That night, Sophie came over with takeout. You're stressed, she observed. Lauren's playing games. What kind of games? He told her about Mia's report from the weekend. Sophie's expression went hard. That's manipulative. I know, but there's nothing I can do about it except document it and hope the judge cares in 6 months. That's not good enough. It's all I've got. Sophie was quiet for a moment, then said, What if I talk to her? To Lauren? Yeah, woman to woman. No lawyers, no court. Just a conversation. And say what? That she needs to stop using Mia as a pawn. That if she actually cares about her daughter, she'll focus on rebuilding their relationship instead of undermining yours. Sophie, that's not going to work. You don't know that. She'll see it as you overstepping. Maybe, but maybe she'll listen. What have we got to lose? Adrian wanted to say no. Wanted to keep Sophie as far away from Lauren as possible because mixing them felt dangerous. But he was also tired of fighting alone. Okay, he said, but I'm coming with you. No, this needs to be just me and her. Sophie, Adrian, trust me, please. He did. That was the problem. Okay, but if it goes south, I'll walk away, I promise. Sophie met Lauren at a coffee shop halfway between their respective homes. Lauren showed up 10 minutes late, looking wary. I wasn't sure you'd actually come, Sophie said. I wasn't sure I should. Lauren sat down, didn't order anything. What do you want? To talk about Mia. You don't have kids. You've been in Adrian's life for what, a few months? What makes you think you have any right to talk to me about my daughter? You're right, I don't have kids. And I've only been around for a few months, but I've seen what Adrian does every day. I've seen how much he loves Mia, and I've seen what happens when you use her to get back at him. Lauren's face went red. I'm not using her. You asked her if she'd rather live with you during visitation. That's not rebuilding a relationship. That's manipulation. You don't know what you're talking about. Then explain it to me. Help me understand why a mother who claims to want what's best for her daughter is making that daughter feel guilty for being happy with her father. Lauren looked away, jaw tight. For a moment, Sophie thought she was going to get up and leave. But then Lauren's shoulders sagged. I hate that he's good at this, she said quietly. I hate that he figured it out and I didn't. I hate that Mia loves him more than she loves me. She doesn't love him more. She just knows him better. Same thing. It's not. Love isn't a competition, but you're turning it into one, and the only person who loses is Mia. Lauren was quiet. You want a relationship with your daughter? Sophie said. Then build one. Show up. Be consistent. Don't ask her to choose. Just be there. I'm trying. Try harder, because right now all you're doing is proving Adrian right, that you're not reliable, that you can't be trusted. Lauren's eyes went bright with tears. You think I don't know that? You think I don't hate myself for walking away? Then stop making Mia pay for your mistakes. She didn't ask for this. She didn't ask for you to leave. And she sure as hell didn't ask for you to come back and make her feel like she's the one who has to fix it. Lauren wiped her eyes, looked at Sophie with something close to resentment. You're really in love with him, aren't you? Yeah, I am. Does he know how lucky he is? I think he's starting to. Lauren stood up, grabbed her purse. I'll think about what you said. That's all I'm asking. Lauren walked away without another word. Sophie sat there for a few minutes, trying to breathe through the adrenaline. She'd just confronted her boyfriend's ex-wife. This was insane, but also necessary. And maybe, just maybe, it had worked. 2 days later, Adrian got a text from Lauren. Lauren, I'm sorry for the questions, for making Mia feel caught in the middle. I'll do better. He stared at it for a long time before showing Sophie. What did you say to her? The truth, that she needed to stop using Mia to hurt you. And she actually listened? Apparently. Adrian didn't know what to say, so he just pulled Sophie close and held on. Thank you, he said into her hair. You don't have to thank me. This is what people do when they love each other. They fight for each other. I'm not used to that. I know, but you're going to have to get used to it, because I'm not going anywhere. And for the first time in months, Adrian believed her. Buzz. The 6-month review came faster than Adrian expected. By then, Lauren had been consistent with visitation. She'd stopped asking Mia leading questions. She'd even started showing up to school events. Not all of them, but some. It wasn't perfect, but it was better. The hearing was brief. Judge Reeves reviewed the visitation logs, spoke privately with Mia again, and made her decision. The current arrangement will continue. Mr. Blake retains primary custody. Miss Blake's visitation will remain as previously ordered. We'll review again in 1 year unless either party requests an earlier hearing. It was over. Really over. Adrian walked out of the courthouse with Mia's hand in his and Sophie beside him, and for the first time in 2 years, he didn't feel like he was waiting for everything to fall apart. He felt like maybe, just maybe, things were actually going to be okay. That night, after Mia was in bed, Adrian and Sophie sat on the couch, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her. I've been thinking, Sophie said. About moving in. Adrian's heart skipped. What? Moving in. With you and Mia. If you want. He didn't know what to say. Are you sure? I'm sure. I'm here all the time anyway. And I love you. I love Mia. I want this to be real, permanent. Sophie, that's huge. I know, and if you're not ready, that's okay. But I wanted you to know that I am. Adrian looked at her, at this woman who had walked into his life and refused to leave even when he'd tried to push her away, who had fought for him and for Mia and for them. Yeah, he said. Let's do it. Sophie's face lit up. Yeah? Yeah. Move in, be part of this. All of it. She kissed him, and it felt like a promise, like the beginning of something real, something that might actually last. Sophie moved in on a Saturday in early March, when the weather couldn't decide if it was still winter or ready to be spring. She didn't have much: 2 suitcases of clothes, a box of books, her laptop, and a ridiculously expensive espresso machine that Adrian had never learned how to use. She'd sold most of her furniture, kept only what mattered, and showed up at Adrian's apartment like she'd been planning this her whole life. Mia was vibrating with excitement. Can Sophie have the room next to mine? She asked for the 3rd time that morning. Sophie's going to share my room, Adrian said. Mia wrinkled her nose. That's weird. That's what people do when they live together, Bug. But what if you snore and keep her awake? I don't snore. You totally snore, Sophie said, dragging a suitcase through the door. But I'll survive. Mia giggled and ran to help with the boxes. By noon, Sophie's things were scattered across the apartment in a way that felt both chaotic and right. Her books next to Adrian's on the shelf, her coffee mug in the cabinet, her toothbrush in the bathroom. It was small, simple, but it meant everything. That night, after Mia was asleep, Adrian and Sophie lay in bed staring at the ceiling. This is real, right? Adrian said. You're really here. I'm really here. And you're not going to wake up tomorrow and realize this was a mistake? Sophie turned on her side to look at him. Adrian, I chose this. I chose you. Stop waiting for me to leave. I'm trying. Try harder. He kissed her, and for the first time in longer than he could remember, he let himself believe that maybe this was what happiness felt like. Not perfect, not without problems, just real. The weeks that followed were an adjustment. Sophie had habits Adrian hadn't noticed before. She left cabinet doors open. She put the milk back in the fridge with barely a sip left. She liked the apartment colder than he did, and hotter showers than seemed reasonable. Adrian wasn't perfect either. He was particular about how the dishwasher was loaded. He needed the living room picked up before bed, or he couldn't sleep. He had a way of shutting down when he was stressed instead of talking about it. They had their first real fight 3 weeks in. It started over something stupid. Adrian had forgotten to pick up Mia's prescription on his way home from work, and Sophie had offered to go get it, and Adrian had snapped that he could handle it himself. I was just trying to help, Sophie said. I know, but I don't need help with everything. I didn't say you did. You're always trying to fix things. Because you won't ask for help even when you need it. Maybe I don't want help. Maybe I want to do this myself. Why? To prove something? To who? To myself. The words came out louder than he meant. To prove that I can take care of my kid without falling apart. That I don't need someone to rescue me. Sophie stared at him. Is that what you think I'm doing? Rescuing you? Aren't you? No, Adrian, I'm living with you. I'm being your partner. That's not the same thing. It feels the same. Then that's your problem, not mine. She grabbed her jacket. I'm going to get the prescription. And when I get back, you need to decide if you actually want me here or if you just want someone around when it's convenient. She left. Adrian stood there in the kitchen, feeling like an idiot. Mia appeared in the doorway, Mr. Trunk under her arm. Are you and Sophie breaking up? No, we just had a fight. About what? About me being stubborn. You're stubborn, Mia said matter-of-factly. Thanks, Bug. But Sophie likes you anyway, so you should probably apologize. When did you get so smart? I've always been smart. You just don't always notice. She wasn't wrong. When Sophie came back an hour later, Adrian was waiting. I'm sorry, he said before she could take off her jacket. You're not rescuing me. You're just being here, and I need to stop treating that like it's a problem. Sophie set the prescription on the counter. I'm not trying to take over your life, Adrian. I'm trying to share it. There's a difference. I know, and I'm working on it, I promise. You've been working on it for months. At some point, you're going to have to actually believe it. I'm trying. I know you are. Her voice softened. But I need you to meet me halfway. I can't keep proving that I'm not going anywhere. You have to trust it. What if I mess it up? Then we'll fight about it and figure it out and keep going. That's what people do. He pulled her close, held on tight. I don't want to lose you. You won't. Not unless you push me away so hard I can't come back. I'll stop pushing. Good. Because I'm getting tired of pulling. They stood there as the kitchen, holding each other, and Adrian thought maybe this was what real love looked like. Not grand gestures or perfect moments, just two imperfect people choosing each other over and over, even when it was hard. Work got easier after Richard Carter made it clear that anyone spreading rumors about Sophie and Adrian would answer to him personally. The whispers didn't stop completely, but they quieted. People moved on to other gossip. Greg stopped giving Adrian meaningful looks across conference tables. Adrian even got the raise he'd been promised, which came with a promotion to senior project coordinator and a salary bump that meant he could finally stop checking his bank account before every grocery trip. You earned this, Greg said when he delivered the news. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Adrian didn't. For the first time in years, he let himself take credit for something good. Mia's relationship with Lauren stabilized into something that wasn't perfect, but was functional. Lauren showed up for her weekends. She stopped asking loaded questions. She even started texting Adrian about Mia's preferences, what foods she liked now, which movies she wanted to see, whether she still hated broccoli or if that had changed. It wasn't friendship, but it was civility, and that was enough. One Saturday in late April, Lauren dropped Mia off an hour early. Everything okay? Adrian asked. Yeah, can we talk for a minute? Adrian glanced at Sophie, who was inside with Mia. Sure. They sat on the front steps of the apartment building. Lauren looked nervous, picking at her cuticles the way she used to when they were married. I owe you an apology, she said finally. Adrian blinked. For what? For all of it. For leaving. For making you do this alone. For trying to take Mia back when I had no right to. Lauren, let me finish. She took a breath. I was scared. When we got divorced, I was terrified that I'd be a terrible mother, that I'd screw her up, so I convinced myself it was better if I just wasn't there, that you were better at it anyway. You weren't wrong. Maybe, but that doesn't make it okay. Lauren looked at him. You're a good father, Adrian. Better than I ever gave you credit for. And I'm sorry I made you fight for something that should have been obvious. Adrian didn't know what to say. He'd spent 2 years being angry at Lauren, and now she was sitting here taking responsibility, and it felt strange. I appreciate that, he said finally, I also wanted to say, Sophie's good for you, for both of you. Mia talks about her all the time, about how Sophie helps with homework and makes funny pancakes and doesn't get mad when Mia spills things. Funny pancakes. Apparently she makes them in weird shapes. Last week it was a dinosaur. Adrian smiled despite himself. Yeah, that sounds like Sophie. I'm not trying to get back into your life, Lauren said. I know that ship sailed a long time ago, but I want to be in Mia's life, the right way, not as competition, just as her mom. I think that's all she's ever wanted. Lauren nodded, wiped her eyes. Okay, good. She stood up. I'll see you in 2 weeks. Yeah, see you then. She walked to her car and Adrian sat there on the steps, feeling like something had shifted. Forgiveness was strange. It didn't erase the past. It didn't make the hurt go away, but it made it easier to carry. That summer, Adrian took 2 weeks off work, the first real vacation he'd had in years. They didn't go anywhere fancy, just a cabin upstate, near a lake, with hiking trails in a town with one ice cream shop and nothing to do but exist. Mia spent the days exploring, collecting rocks and insects and leaves she insisted were important. Sophie taught her how to skip stones across the water and told stories about the terrible camping trips she'd been on as a kid. Adrian just watched, let himself be present, let himself stop waiting for something to go wrong. One evening, they were sitting on the cabin's porch watching the sunset over the lake. Mia was inside reading, and it was just Adrian and Sophie with beers they weren't really drinking. I've been thinking, Sophie said. About? About what happens next. For us. Adrian's stomach tightened. What do you mean? I mean, we've been living together for 5 months. We've made it through custody hearings and fights, and your ex-wife and my overprotective father. We've done the hard part. So what's the next part? I don't know. What do you want it to be? Sophie was quiet for a moment. I want forever. But I don't need a ring or a wedding or some big declaration. I just need to know you're in this, fully, not with one foot out the door waiting for it to fall apart. I'm in this, Adrian said. I've been in this. I'm just bad at showing it. Then show it. Stop apologizing for being scared and just be here. I am here. Are you? Because sometimes I feel like you're still waiting for me to leave. Like you don't actually believe this is real. Adrian set down his beer, turned to face her. I believe it's real. I believe you're real. And I'm terrified because everything I've ever loved has either left or been taken away. But I'm trying, Sophie. I'm trying to trust this. Then marry me. The words hung in the air between them. What? Marry me. Not because you have to. Not because it's what people do. But because you want to. Because you're choosing me and I'm choosing you, and we're done pretending this is temporary. Adrian's heart was pounding. Are you serious? Completely. But if you need time to think about it, no. The word came out before he could second guess himself. I don't need time. Yes. Sophie's eyes went wide. Yes? Yes. Let's get married. She laughed, and it sounded like relief. Okay. Good. Because I was terrified you'd say no. I'm terrified you asked, but I'm saying yes anyway. They kissed, and it tasted like summer and beer, and promises Adrian finally believed he could keep. When they told Mia the next morning, she screamed so loud it scared the birds out of the trees. You're getting married? For real? For real, Sophie said. Can I be in the wedding? You can be whatever you want. I want to be the flower girl and also give a speech. Done. Mia threw her arms around both of them, and Adrian felt something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not the kind that came from things being perfect. The kind that came from things being exactly as they should be. They got married 3 months later in the backyard of Richard Carter's house, because Sophie's mother had insisted, and Adrian had learned that picking battles with Sophie's family wasn't worth it. It was small. Immediate family, close friends, Mia's teacher Emma, a few people from work, nothing fancy, just real. Mia wore a pale blue dress and carried a basket of flowers she took very seriously. She walked down the aisle scattering petals with the kind of focus usually reserved for science projects. Lauren was there too. In the back row, quiet, but there. She'd sent a card a week before the wedding, just 2 lines. I'm happy for you. Thank you for letting me be part of this. Adrian had invited her because it felt like the right thing to do, because Mia had asked, because holding on to anger was exhausting. Sophie walked down the aisle in a simple white dress, no veil, no train, just her. And when she reached Adrian, she was smiling like she'd just won the lottery. The ceremony was short. The officiant, a friend of Richard's, kept it simple. They'd written their own vows, and Adrian had practiced his 100 times, but still forgot half of them when he actually had to say them out loud. "I spent a long time thinking I was better off alone," he said, his voice unsteady. "That letting someone in meant losing control. But you didn't ask for control. You just asked to be here, and that's the bravest thing anyone's ever done for me. So I'm choosing you, every day, for as long as you'll have me." Sophie's eyes were bright. "I'm choosing you too, even when you're stubborn, even when you're scared, even when you try to do everything yourself because you think asking for help makes you weak. I'm choosing all of it because you're worth it, and so is this." They kissed, and Mia cheered, and everyone laughed. The reception was in the same backyard, string lights and a playlist Sophie had spent weeks curating, and food that was too good for a wedding this small. Mia gave her speech during dinner, reading from a piece of paper she'd folded and unfolded so many times it was falling apart. "My dad is the best dad in the world," she read, her voice serious. "He makes me breakfast every day and helps with my homework even when I'm being annoying. And Sophie is really nice and makes funny pancakes and doesn't get mad when I spill things. I think they're going to be really happy together. Also, can we get a dog now?" Everyone laughed. Adrian shook his head. Sophie leaned over and whispered, "We'll talk about it." Later, when the sun was setting and most of the guests had left, Adrian found himself standing at the edge of the yard with Richard Carter, both of them holding drinks they'd barely touched. "You're good for her," Richard said. "She's good for me. I know. That's why I'm not threatening you anymore." Richard smiled slightly. "But if you ever hurt my daughter, I will end you, just so we're clear." Crystal. They stood there in comfortable silence for a moment. "You know what the difference is between you and most of the men Sophie's dated?" Richard asked. "What's that?" "You're not trying to be perfect. You're just trying to be better, and that's what matters." Adrian didn't know what to say to that, so he just nodded. Richard clapped him on the shoulder and walked back to the party. That night, after Mia was asleep in the guest room and the house was quiet, Adrian and Sophie lay in bed in one of Richard's guest suites, exhausted and happy. "We did it," Sophie said. "We did. How does it feel?" "Terrifying. Good. Real." "Yeah, all of that." She turned to look at him. "Thank you." "For what?" "For letting me in, for trusting me, for choosing this even when it scared you. Thank you for not giving up on me when I was being an idiot." "You're still being an idiot sometimes, but you're my idiot now." He laughed. "Legally binding." "Exactly." They fell asleep like that, tangled together, and Adrian dreamed of nothing at all. The years that followed weren't perfect. They had fights about money and schedules and whose turn it was to deal with Mia's school drama, about Sophie's habit of leaving lights on and Adrian's tendency to brood instead of talking, about big things and small things and everything in between. But they also had good days, more good days than bad. Mia grew up, started middle school, then high school, got braces, then got them off. Discovered she was good at debate and terrible at sports and didn't care what anyone thought about it. She stayed close with Lauren, saw her every other weekend, texted her about things she didn't want to talk to Adrian about. And that was okay. It didn't feel like losing anymore. It felt like Mia having more people who loved her. Sophie and Adrian bought a house when Mia was 12. Nothing fancy, but bigger than the apartment, with a yard and a second bathroom and a kitchen where they could all cook together without bumping into each other. Mia got her dog on her 13th birthday, a rescue mutt named Biscuit, who chewed everything and was completely useless, but who Mia loved with her whole heart. Adrian got promoted again. Sophie started her own consulting firm. They were busy and tired and sometimes overwhelmed, but they were happy. One evening, when Mia was 16 and out with friends, Adrian and Sophie sat on their back porch watching Biscuit dig holes he shouldn't be digging. "You ever think about where we'd be if we hadn't met?" Sophie asked. "Sometimes." "What do you think?" "I think I'd still be surviving, getting by, doing the bare minimum to keep things from falling apart. And now? Now I'm living, actually living, not just making it through." Sophie leaned her head on his shoulder. "You were living before me. You just didn't realize it. Maybe. But this is better. Yeah, it is. They sat there as the sun set, not talking, just being. And Adrian thought about how strange life was, how he'd spent so long convinced that letting someone in would destroy everything he'd built, that love was a weakness he couldn't afford. But love hadn't destroyed anything. It had just made everything bigger, messier, harder, and better. He'd learned that survival wasn't the same as living, that asking for help didn't make you weak, that letting someone see you at your worst didn't mean they'd leave. Sometimes it meant they'd stay even harder. He'd learned that family wasn't just blood. It was choice. It was showing up. It was Sophie making terrible pancakes and Mia rolling her eyes at his dad jokes, and even Lauren texting to ask if Mia needed a ride home from debate practice. He'd learned that happiness wasn't something you earned or achieved. It was something you built. Slowly. Imperfectly. One day at a time. And he'd learned that he didn't have to do it alone. Not anymore. Mia came home around 9, loud and laughing, telling stories about her friends that Adrian only half understood. "Did you eat?" Sophie asked. "Yeah, pizza. Homework? I'll do it later." Mia, "I will, I promise." She disappeared into her room, music starting up a moment later. Adrian shook his head. She's going to forget. Probably, but she'll figure it out. When did we become the kind of parents who let things slide? When we realize she's 16 and responsible enough to deal with the consequences. That's terrifying. Welcome to parenting a teenager. Adrian pulled Sophie close, kissed the top of her head. "I couldn't do this without you." "Yes, you could, but I'm glad you don't have to." Later that night, after Mia had finished her homework and gone to bed, after Sophie had fallen asleep beside him, Adrian lay awake thinking about how far he'd come, about the man he'd been 5 years ago, scared, alone, convinced that asking for help was admitting defeat. About the man he was now, still scared sometimes, still stubborn, still imperfect, but not alone, never alone. He thought about Mia, asleep down the hall, growing into someone he was proud of, someone kind and smart and unafraid to take up space. He thought about Sophie, breathing softly beside him, the woman who'd walked into his life and refused to leave even when he'd tried to push her away. He thought about Lauren, doing her best in her own imperfect way. He thought about all of it, the fights and the fear and the moments of pure joy, and realized something he'd never quite believed before. He was happy, not perfectly, not without problems, but genuinely, deeply happy. And that was enough, more than enough. It was everything. Adrian closed his eyes and let himself sleep, knowing that when he woke up, Sophie would still be there. Mia would still be there. The life they'd built together would still be there. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, that didn't scare him. It just made him grateful. Because survival had taught him how to endure. But love had taught him how to live. And living, really living, was the greatest gift he'd ever received.